Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurul Anati binti Muhammad Fisoh and my metric number is 288827.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Marda binti Jamaluddin, metric number 288933.
What is natural disaster? A natural disaster is negative impact following an actual occurrence of natural hazard in the event that it significantly harm a community. A natural disaster also can cause loss of lives or damage to property and typically leave some economic damage in its wake. The severity of the damage depends on the affected population's resilience and on the infrastructure available. What is the example of natural hazard? Example of natural hazard include floods, cold waves, drought, earthquake, heatwaves, hurricanes, landslides, lightning, strong wind, tornado, tsunami, wildfire, and others. In modern times, the divide between natural, man-made, and man-accelerated disaster is quite difficult to draw. Human choices and activities like architecture, fire, resource management, or even climate change potentially play a role in causing natural disaster. In fact, the term natural disaster has been called a misnomer already in 1976. A disaster is a result of a natural or man-made hazard impacting a vulnerable community. It is the combination of the hazard along with the exposure of a vulnerable society that result in a disaster. Malaysia is one of the countries that is also facing a natural disaster. A few natural disasters have happened, such as landslide, drought, flooding, tsunami, and wildfire. One of the most common things that happen in our country is floods. So, for this topic, we will be discussing more regarding flooding. But first, let's talk about our experience with natural disaster in Malaysia. Let me introduce my friend Madia to discuss this topic. Hi Madia, how are you? I hope you are doing fine. I have some question to ask you. Have you ever experienced a natural disaster in your hometown?
Yes, I have. I live in Al-Star, Kedah. If it rains like cats and dogs, my place usually will be affected by the flood, but luckily it's rarely happen and it's not as bad as instead in Pantai Timur like Kelantan and Terengganu. How about you, Anati?
Thank you for asking, Madia. I think I have never experienced that kind of natural disaster like floods in my hometown. Maybe because my place had a good drainage system, but I do feel sad if I see news about what happened in our country. Especially last year, the state of Selangor suddenly experienced floods and there were huge casualties due to this disaster.
Anati, why does flooding happen?
Malaysia, the two main causes of floods are natural causes and human activity. Floods caused by natural factors are due to the high intensity of rainfall in a short period of time, and that thing can cause flash floods. Heavy rain also causes floods in certain places. However, for me, I personally think that human activity is the main reason for this natural disaster happening. If we as human beings play the right role in our nature, this kind of natural disaster will not frequently happen. So now, I will share a few common human activities that contribute to floods. The first one is infrastructure failures. Flood can be caused by the breaking or failure of the infrastructure that can cause large quantity of water to flood into a local area, or when dams break due to faulty construction or maintenance, or when they are overwhelmed due to heavy precipitation. For instance, 7 areas around Buroin and Yan Ikeda were hit by flash floods after heavy rain led to a water column plunging down from Gunung Jerai. Next is deforestation. When deforestation occurs in particular area, there are no more trees to help to soak up precipitation and reduce water flow over the landscape. Without these natural protections, there is an increased risk of flooding and erosions wherever it rains. Besides development and infrastructure in flood-prone areas, the development and building of infrastructure in flood-prone areas, such as along river, near ocean shorelines, or near river deltas, has led to an increase in vulnerability to flooding because the natural resiliency of this ecosystem has been compromised. Madhya, do you have any suggestion on how to prevent flooding in our country?
While we as humans have certainly altered much of the natural landscape of the planet, leading to an increase in floods, we can also help to reduce the risk of flooding by restoring natural ecosystems such as wetlands and coastal ecosystems such as mangrove forests. We will restore some of nature's capacity to deal with flood events. By planting trees and reforesting areas that have been deforested, we can restore the landscape's ability to take up and store precipitation. We can also restrict the development of infrastructure within flood-prone areas, such as next to river and coast. The rapid rise of concrete surface is resulting in flooding because there is not much chance for rainwater to get absorbed into the soil. Construction should happen in a way that water will get absorbed into the soil and recharge the groundwater. This will mitigate the risk of flooding. Trees absorb water, but rapid urbanization is resulting in the cutting of more and more trees. This should be prevented. Encouragement of wetland, lake and ponds should be prevented. They can also rainwater and can thus prevent the risk of flooding. Water conservation pits should be made compulsory for every home. They can store rainwater and can mitigate the risk of flood. Rooftop gardening should be encouraged to create more chance for water to get absorbed. Footpaths, roads, and parking lots should also be constructed in such a way that they can also allow the water to go into the soil. Permeable paving should be encouraged. Flood barriers should be constructed in flood-prone areas. Extra care should be taken while assessing and allowing business projects in flood-prone areas. In conclusion, all the disasters that happen in this world have their misstep and it's time for us as well as human beings. Even though flood come under natural disaster, most of the flood can be categorized as man-made disaster because poor planning of infrastructure is resulting in flooding. We have to take action to prevent such man-made floods. Flooding will not only cause material losses but can also be a source of occurrence of various dangerous diseases. If we work together to reduce the cost of flooding, we will be able to reduce the consequence and effect that come with flood. Therefore, let us join hands together, work together and lend a helping hand to create a beautiful and harmonious Malaysia.